Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back. Nice to have you with us tonight. I mentioned last week that I thought I might do a concert devoted to music of the British Isles, and so that's what tonight's performance will be. If you weren't here last night or don't see the announcements on Facebook, I guess it's a surprise to you. But anyhow, this concert is called A Trip to the British Isles, and I'm going to play everything from the real old-time British music hall hits to some British ragtime and novelty piano and other songs associated with England, Scotland, and so forth. It should be a fun night. Like I say, thanks for joining me. And I'm going to start off with a medley of a couple of the earliest British music hall hits. British music hall was almost a parallel to American vaudeville, but they say that it lasted even longer. And it goes way back to probably the mid-1800s. I'm going to start with a tune that is probably familiar to a lot of you. It is from the 1890s, and the real title is Daisy Bell, but it's more commonly known as A Bicycle Built for Two. And then we'll do Ship Ahoy, All the Nice Girls Love a Sailor. This is a tune that came out in England in 1909, and here's the original British copy of it with the music hall star Hetty King on the cover. And then we'll wind up with one of the great hits of World War I. It's A Long, Long Way to Tipperary, otherwise known as That's the Wrong Way to Tickle Mary. so much. All early British music hall tunes. Why am I not surprised? I already have had a request for the White Cliffs of Dover. Of course, I will be including that tonight. Stick around, it's going to be a little bit later on in the concert, along with some other tunes that were big hits for Dame Vera Lynn. I'll pay tribute to her later on tonight. But I often like to go chronologically through my concerts as I tell you about the history of the music. And so what's up next is another early British music hall song. This might be my favorite if I had to pick one. I usually say I don't have favorites, but this is certainly my favorite British music hall performer. And his name was G.H. Elliott. His nickname is very politically incorrect today, but I'm going to tell you anyway. He was called the Chocolate-Colored Coon. And as I look back on that, that moniker also has another meaning, which is that he had studied and loved the music of African Americans. In fact, he performed in the United States during the height of the Ragtime era, even though he was from England. And here is G.H. Elliott in all his glory on the cover of one of his signature tunes, which I'm going to play for you now. It's called I Used to Sigh for the Silvery Moon. I'm lucky to have an original copy of it, printed in England, again, the same year as Ship Ahoy, 1909. The great G.H. Elliott. I love his music. His records and songs were just so happy. That's what I think is good about it. Call me a simpleton, but that's true. And here is I Used to Sigh for the Silvery Moon, in tribute to G.H. Elliott. very much. I used to sigh for the silvery moon. Well, the ragtime rhythms from America invaded Europe very early on, and I'd like to play for you two American songs which became big hits in England. One was written in 1911, one in 1912, and they were introduced overseas by a great British music hall star named Ida Barr, and that's why I play these tunes together sometimes. First up, Irving Berlin's Everybody's Doing It Now, and following that will be Oh You Beautiful Doll, complete with the original verse to that song, which is an early example of a 12-bar blues chord progression. And that's in the verse of Oh You Beautiful Doll. So now two American songs introduced in England in 1912 by Ida Barr. Everybody's Doing It Now and Oh You Beautiful Doll. Thank you so much. Oh, You Beautiful Doll, and Everybody's Doing It Now. The piano really sounds wonderful tonight, and that's because my piano technician, Chris Drury, is here from Albuquerque this weekend, and he was able to tune the piano relatively quickly yesterday. I think it might be a record, so I'm sure all of the work that he's put in is paying off finally, and it should sound very good for tonight's concert. If you enjoy this kind of music, I accept virtual tips for these performances. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, and the information is pinned in the chat, and it should be in the postings on all three websites. I'm just checking the chat everywhere. Andrew, tonight is my British Music Hall concert. I don't know that piece by James P. Johnson anyway. I've got so many listeners tonight, especially on Facebook. It's a little higher than usual. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps with the algorithms on social media. You know, I want as many people to see these concerts as possible. As many people to hear this music as I can. So, you know, I can't do a tribute to British music without playing the music of Billy Mayerl, who was probably the most brilliant popular pianist in England for decades. He was extremely popular throughout the 1920s, 30s, into the 1940s and beyond. But there was one piece he composed, I finally learned a few years ago, and he called it his bread and butter and his jam, I think is how he put it. That's what a big hit it was. It's not really that easy to play. In fact, most of Billy Mayerl's music is extremely challenging. He wrote this in 1927, and so let me play it for you now. His biggest hit, at least in instrumental piano music, Marigold. You might also consider it kind of the kitten on the keys of Great Britain. His style was very much like the novelty piano of Zez Confrey, and this was his big hit, Marigold. Marigold. Thank you so much. Yeah, 155 viewers on YouTube. That's really amazing. You've never heard Marigold? No kidding. Well, that's the kitten on the keys of England. And I will play some more Billy Mayerl music later tonight. But I thought I'd intersperse it with the music hall and the pop tunes. I'm planning to play two songs for you that were written by the same composer. There were composers in England very much like Tin Pan Alley in the United States. They had a street in London that was kind of considered that area of town. And one of the musicians that I loved working with was the late Ian Whitcomb. Ian was a British rock star in the 1960s who became a very knowledgeable historian of Tin Pan Alley and primarily American popular music, but he knew a lot about the music of England as well. And in fact, Ian's uncle, I believe it was uncle by marriage, something like that, was one of the famous British Tin Pan Alley songwriters. And I'm not even sure exactly what his real name was. He went by so many different pseudonyms. I believe the real name was Stanley J. Damerel, and he took the name Damerel and created a pseudonym called Errol Reeves. And Errol Reeves is one of the songwriters credited with an enormous hit song that came out in the 1930s called Lady of Spain. So Ian Whitcomb's uncle wrote Lady of Spain, but he also wrote many, many other dozens, if not hundreds, of popular songs in England in the 1920s and 30s. And here is the original copy of one of Errol Reeves' songs. It's called Butterflies in the Rain. And I'm also going to play another one called Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing. And many people today know that song because it is used every day in Disneyland's Enchanted Tiki Room. So we'll do Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing, a couple of choruses of that first, and then Butterflies in the Rain. Now, Errol Reeves wrote the lyrics to Butterflies in the Rain. The music was written by Sherman Myers, one of the other British composers that he worked with often. Another one was a man named Tolchard Evans. I don't think Ian ever got to meet his uncle, but he did meet Tolchard Evans. Tolchard, I can't say these names like British people would. But anyhow, in honor of Stanley Damerel, aka Errol Reeves, here are two of his songs from the early 30s. Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing and Butterflies in the Rain. you so much. Hope you enjoyed those tunes. One of these days I've got to learn Lady of Spain because that was Stanley Dambrow's biggest hit. I'm going to have to learn that and play it for people in my concerts for sure. Loretta is leaving for Spain in 2 days. How neat. I see someone's commenting here on YouTube about Vera Lynn. No, that's not right. She didn't live to 97. She lived to 103. Isn't that amazing? And I will be playing a number of Vera Lynn songs here shortly. I'll do it maybe midway through the concert. That way, hopefully, the most people will be able to hear it. And I did have the pleasure of corresponding with her, believe it or not. I got 2 real nice letters from Dame Vera Lynn, and she autographed some old sheet music for me. I'll tell you about that in a bit. In the meantime, let's do just a generalized medley of some more British tunes. These are still from the days of the music hall, but primarily 1930s. I'm going to do Knees Up Mother Brown, Underneath the Arches, which I think was a big hit for Flanagan and Allen. And then we'll do Red Sails in the Sunset, and one of the great, beautiful standards of the 30s called These Foolish Things Remind Me of You. And I'll end the whole medley with one of the most famous British tunes of the 30s. I sort of think of this as the 5'2" Eyes of Blue of Great Britain, and it's called The Lambeth Walk. So here's another medley of 1930s British tunes. you so much. All right, well, there's some of the great historic British tunes from the 30s. Boy, the viewer numbers are really up tonight. That's terrific. I appreciate all of you. That's a good question. Someone just asked if Auld Lang Syne has any Scottish or British ties. I'm not really sure about that. You know what I'm going to do next is some more of the Billy Mayerl tunes, and I saw a request for that from Leo Roth, who listens to my concerts almost every week, and I know he likes this tune. I'll go ahead and play the next two Billy Mayerl tunes back to back. Here's the original copy of the next one, and I brought this out just because I thought it had some great cover artwork. This is Billy Mayrill's piano solo, Chopsticks, which has some obviously oriental harmonies and so forth. One of the really great novelty piano solos. And I think this came out the same year as Marigold. It sure did, 1927. Here is Chopsticks, a syncopated impression for piano by Billy Mayerl. Thank you for that tip in the chat. This is from You Know They Exist. You can send tips in the chat now. This is a new thing. Thank you very much for that. Huh. Thank you very much. Chopsticks. As you can tell, the Billy Mayerl piano solos are very difficult to play, and that's one reason I've never learned a whole lot of them. It surprises me just how popular his music was, considering how difficult it is to play. I have been trying to keep about 3 of his pieces under my fingers now for the last few years, so let me play the next one for you. This is from later in his career, 1938, and I'm only missing original copies of maybe 2 of the Billy Mayerl instrumentals. He wrote tons of songs and show tunes. I don't know too much about those, but I've been trying to find all of his novelty piano solos. I'm missing the one he wrote called Honky Tonk, which is a novelty piano solo, and I'm missing this piece. I'd love to find an original copy of it. Even though I don't think there's a very good cover artwork, I'd like to have the original because it's railroad themed. And as you all know, I'm a train lover. So here from 1938 is Billy Mayrill's Railroad Rhythm. And if you listen closely, you can even hear sound effects from the track gang and the train speeding up and slowing down. It's really a brilliant composition, almost more like 20th century classical music than anything else. judging by some of the harmonies and so forth. Here's Railroad Rhythm. Thank you so much. Railroad Rhythm. Isn't that a terrific piece? Got a first-time listener from Ontario, Canada. Thank you very much. Well, time's getting away from me tonight. I can't believe it's 5 minutes till 7 already. You know what I might do next? I have seen some requests for Scottish music. And if you have never listened to my virtual concerts before, this is a 1913 Apollo player piano. And once in a while, I will demonstrate some piano rolls. What's unusual about the Apollo piano is that I have dynamic control, a soft and loud lever right here. Most regular upright 88-note player pianos don't have that. And I know last time I did a British themed concert, I played some music by Harry Lauder for everyone, and even threw in Will Fife's I Belong to Glasgow. But I thought, to make it different this time, I would share with you a piano roll that I happen to have in my collection. This is just a random roll. It's a rhythmic piano roll, and it's hand played by Andrei Kmita. I assume that's how you pronounce his name. You can tell it's a hand played roll, a fairly early one, And as such, this is a good piece for me to use to demonstrate this roll is a good one to demonstrate the dynamic and pedal control that you have with an Apollo player piano. And so here, in honor of our friends from Scotland tonight, are some songs by Sir Harry Lauder. This roll has no less than 5 songs. I Love a Lassie, Stop Your Tickling Jock, I've Loved Her Ever Since She Was a Baby, A Wee Dutch and Doris, I'm not sure exactly what that means, must be a Scottish expression, and then the last tune is She Is My Daisy. 5 Harry Lauder tunes. It's interesting how this roll is played. He stops in between each song, but it's simply called Harry Lauder Favorites. And that's it. So a little tribute to Sir Harry Lauder. Okay, got that piano roll all rewound. Oh dear, it's coming apart. That is one of the dangers of playing 100-year-old piano rolls. Hi. Well, it is now 7 o'clock here in Durango, Colorado, and I usually mention twice during my concerts that I accept virtual tips for these performances. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, and it's very helpful to my career. I've never worked more than once or twice on single gigs with an agent in my life, and so if you enjoy this kind of music, it helps me keep it alive. And if you don't trust PayPal, there is also a P.O. box on my website for checks. So I want to mention that a second time real quick. I see a request for some Ray Noble. Yes, I will play some of his music as tonight continues. But you know, let me see. Let's do these two next. I'm going to play a couple of British songs that came out a little later on in the 1930s. Actually, the second tune is 1940s, but they're very famous. And I played them a couple of weeks ago in my riverboat-themed concert. They're both about rivers, ships. So here from 1937, I believe, yes, is the original British edition of Harbour Lights, a song that became immensely popular during World War II. It's written by the great British songwriters Jimmy Kennedy and Hugh Williams. I think Jimmy Kennedy wrote the words to Teddy Bear's Picnic. It's an American tune, but the words are written in England. Anyhow, I'm going to do Harbour Lights and then follow it up immediately with one of the most famous British tunes called Cruising Down the River on a Sunday Afternoon. And I have heard secondhand that the story behind that song is that it was written by a British school teacher, believe it or not, as part of some sort of songwriting contest. It became an enormous hit in both England and the United States. So here's two tunes back to back, Harbour Lights and Cruising Down the River. you so much. Harbor lights and cruising down the river. Well, I think it's about time to finally do my tribute to Dame Vera Lynn. Don't all of you agree? As I mentioned, about 11 or 12 years ago, I had the pleasure of corresponding with Dame Vera Lynn. I didn't even have her address, but the letter reached her. Apparently everyone in England knows who Vera Lynn was, and she truly had a magnificent voice. Her career went all the way back to the early to mid-1930s, and in World War II, she had a hit record on We'll Meet Again and many others, and she became known as the Force's sweetheart. And I'm going to do a rather long medley of songs that she recorded. They're not all even British. One or two of them are American songs. But they're all songs that she recorded and made famous. We're going to start with a beautiful song written during the war called When the Lights Go On Again All Over the World, followed by a song that's actually more associated with Gracie Fields, which is called Wish Me Luck As You Wave Me Goodbye. And then a song that I just happen to like that Vera Lynn recorded, which is very much a war song as well. You can tell by the title. It's called When They Sound the Last All Clear. I even know the verse to that one. And then we'll do the famous We'll Meet Again, followed by A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square, and The White Cliffs of Dover, which was written in the United States, but of course is associated with England. And then I will wrap up the medley with a song that Vera Lynn sang in one of her movies that I really love. The movie was called We'll Meet Again, and the song, the title is so British, it's wonderful. Be Like the Kettle and Sing. And that will finish my Vera Lynn medley. So here we go with a tribute to Dame Vera Lynn. Thank you so much. The music of Dame Vera Lynn. Hope you all enjoyed that. Well, those are probably some of the most famous songs that ever came out of Great Britain. I just realized that March 17th this year will be on a Sunday, so I may have to save Irish songs for St. Patrick's Day. That'll be coming up pretty soon. I'll probably skip those tonight. But I would like to represent another English composer. I don't play much of his music, but it is very special. He was multi-talented. He was a playwright, he was a composer, he was a lyricist, he was an actor, including in a number of movies, and his name was Noël Coward. And so here, just by itself, I'd like to play for you one of his more famous songs. This one is more romantic in nature, as opposed to some of his songs with the clever lyrics that were really very funny and comedic. This one, I only have the American edition. I'm going to have to start looking for the original British copies of some of these tunes I'm playing tonight. It's from a review that was produced by Charles B. Cochrane called Words and Music. Now, here's the American cover of Mad About the Boy. So let me play this for you now. One of Noël Coward's beautiful songs, originally written in 1932 from the show Words and Music, Mad About the Boy. Thank you so much. Music of Noël Coward, Mad About the Boy. As I was planning for tonight's concert, I thought about throwing in a piano roll to kind of fill out some time, and then I found two that I really wanted to play for you. So we're going to do another Noël Coward song, but this time on a player piano roll. This is from a show that was produced by the same man, Charles B. Cochrane. Must have been a major figure in England. And the show came out in 1928. It was called This Year of Grace. Beatrice Lillie was in the show. And then it came to the United States. And it was a big hit on Broadway as well. And one of the other hit songs from this show was called World Weary, one of my favorite Noël Coward tunes. This one is called A Room with a View. And this is from a U.S. music roll. Here from 1928, Noël Coward's A Room with a View. I think by using these piano rolls, I've played almost nothing but British songs tonight. Well, I know enough of them that it's not hard to do an entire concert of British music. If you go to some other countries where they don't speak English, it's a lot more difficult for me. Well, actually, what I'm going to do next, I've been looking forward to this part of the concert the most. And that's because we're going to go to another country which at one time was a British colony. It was part of the British Empire, but it is no longer. And that's Australia. I had the pleasure of doing a 2-week tour in Australia back in 2018. And I have discovered a favorite Australian composer, and I'd like to play some of his music for you now. He might be considered to people who love novelty piano music, the Billy Mayerl of Australia. His name was Sefton Daly. I believe he was born in New Zealand, but he spent his whole life living and working in Sydney, Australia. He played at the Metro Minerva Theatre, was one of the places. And in the early 1940s, he wrote some piano solos. They're more like novelty piano than anything else. And there are three in particular that fit this mold. And I'm going to play all three of them for you now, back to back. Sefton Daly's music, I think, is just beautiful, melodic. It's also very challenging to play. And recently I was able to obtain the original edition of his first published composition. And here it is, published in Australia in 1942. This is Serenade to a Snake. You'll be able to tell that that's what it's supposed to be when I play it for you. It's amazing how some music can bring certain themes to mind. And he did record all of this music. He only made 3 records, sadly. Recorded New Year's Eve, 1942. And I'd really love to find the original 78 records for all of these pieces because they are beautiful. I do have a CD transfer, but I'd like the original records. Here is Serenade to a Snake. Actually, the copyright date on this is 1941. The music of Sefton Daly. Thank you so much. Well, the next one, I actually found in an antique store when I was on tour over there. I found it somewhere in the Blue Mountains of Australia in the basement of an antique store, and I immediately fell in love with it. I think this is probably the best of all of his pieces. From 1943, a novelty piano solo by Sefton Daly called Color Scheme. Here we go. Thank you so much. Color Scheme. And next up, the last of the Sefton Daly novelty piano solos. He did write a few other pieces. These are the three that are more like novelties. And this one, in a fitting twist for tonight's concert, this was dedicated for my friend Noël Coward, a great British songwriter. They must have known each other. They were colleagues, worked, writing music during the same period. And this one, again from 1943, is Brief Candles by Sefton Daly for my friend Noël Coward. Brief Candles. Brief Candles. Thank you very much, everybody. I did do a recording session with a whole bunch of rare Australian ragtime, and I included those three novelties at the end of the album. Boy. And I did not have CDs pressed of this recording because I figured it would be difficult to sell this music, but you can still buy it as a digital download on my personal website. That's the only place you can get it, is by digital download on my website, which has my middle initial in it, adamgswanson.com. So if you enjoyed that Australian music, you might check out the album I recorded called Ragtime Australia. And now I'd like to close out the concert with two tunes. I promised someone some music by Ray Noble tonight, so here from the early 30s is one of his hit songs called Goodnight Sweetheart. And I'm going to follow that up with Pretty Waltz, which was not written in England, but I know that it was a big hit there at the time in the early 1920s. It's the beautiful 3 o'clock in the morning, which was primarily a hit for Paul Whiteman in the United States. But here to close the concert is Good Night, Sweetheart, and 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's it for the night, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this concert. I tried to get to a few requests, and I appreciate all of your virtual tips very much. It helps me in my career, especially this time of year when I don't have as much work in the winter. And I will look forward very much to playing for all of you again next Sunday night on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So please join me then next Sunday night. And for now, good night, everybody. Thanks again.